Hello, everyone. Welcome to the At Hearst to Mom podcast. I'm Lauren Rose, and today's guest is Christopher Birstler. Christopher is a four-time suicide attempt and trauma survivor who's on a mission to provide education, philanthropy, and advocacy through his nonprofit. A board-certified patient advocate and author speaker, he is devoted to being a voice for the voiceless. If he could have one superpower, he would look people in the face and instantly heal their pain and suffering. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Lauren.
So you've got chronic pain. Tell us just a little bit about your experiences with chronic pain. Like, what do you deal with? How long have you had it? Things like that.
Yes, I've had it for quite a few years. I would say if I had to um pedal backwards to when it first came on, I would say around 2014, 15, possibly. But the interesting thing is I didn't realize it was chronic pain right when it started. And wasn't diagnosed with the actual associated causes until a few months ago. So
Oh,
almost
wow.
like 10 years, possibly longer, depending on how you want to figure in the numbers and timelines between really getting a solid idea of what's going on. And that is fibromyalgia. And I wouldn't say unfortunate. Some may say it's unfortunate, but I look at it as more of a blessing because, and my rheumatologist actually referred to it as an autoimmune disease that doesn't cause like more like doesn't have the extent of detriments and setbacks that other autoimmune diseases have. So with fibromyalgia, the key is to modify your lifestyle and reduce stress and basically take best care of yourself holistically. And that has been instrumental for folks with symptom reduction.
And I understand what your rheumatologist is talking about, not like being degenerative to your body, but it's still a major health issue. Like, I've also got fibromyalgia along with arthritis. And there are a lot of days my fibromyalgia is worse than the arthritis, and I can't function because of the fibromyalgia. So it can definitely take a toll on our lives and our health. So, like, what are some ways that you found that your chronic pain has affected you personally, affected your ability to do things like that?
That's a great question. I would say it has caused me to back out of certain jobs I was offered and quit a job as well that I loved. And which is really unfortunate, but I truly believe that when one door opens, a better door opens in return. And that better door isn't necessarily a better, more greater thing, but it can be something that's more aligned with what's best for you. And that's exactly what happened. I had doors closed. I started to just sit in silence and patience, and that's led to clarity and inner support to go forward.
That's really good. I had to stop working in 2017 because of my chronic pain, and I went through a lot after that. It was a like a 2-year grieving process. I was really depressed and angry at my body, and I just felt like I'd lost so much. So, but then, I decided that I didn't want my pain to to lack purpose. So I started a blog, I started a podcast, and I tried to let my pain have a purpose, basically. So I can see how, like, when my door closed on having an outside career, career outside the home, that it opened the door to what I'm doing now, which is really fun and interesting for me. It's not what I would have picked for myself, but you don't always get to pick things in life. You just have to make the best out of them.
You don't, and you can customize your life to your needs and your preferences as well, which is something that makes free will and autonomy so beautiful.
Yeah, modifying my life has been a huge key for me. I modify my chores, I modify how I play with my daughter, I modify how I even relate with other people. Like there are certain times of the day and certain days that I take a break from doing anything related to my podcast. So I only let people schedule like during the day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes on Saturdays, because I know that I need a break and I can't have five people scheduling one day after the other because that'll really wear me down. So I think modifying your life is one of my biggest tips for living with chronic pain.
Yeah, I find modification and just reduction and just finding a fine balance can really go so far, like and support you emotionally, mentally, as well as physically.
Right. So what about like your relationships? How, like your friends, your family, how has chronic pain affected those relationships?
I would say with that, um, there's things that I I've obviously had pain when I've been out with people, and that has been a hassle in the past. But I say in the past because now I'm at the point where I got over the hump of playing victim and limiting myself. Like I had a provider who said, you need to exercise, you need to get out, regardless of the pain, and push through. And from doing that, I feel that I don't recognize or feel the pain as bad as I did in the past, which is definitely amazing. But back when I wasn't in that situation, I wouldn't like do things that I wanted to do and that I was excited to do. Like I didn't make it to a Yankee game, Yankees game a couple years ago because of the pain. Didn't make it to the auto show in Manhattan because of the pain. And I flew to visit a family member a couple years ago, and my pain, like, friggin' was through the roof. It was like extreme, like the night before. And but I got through it somehow. Like I had to limit myself and tell my loved one, okay, I can't keep walking with you. I'll meet you back at the gate if you could bring our food back, this and that. And just having to advocate for myself and pace myself
Mhm.
physically.
Yeah, I think those are two great tips too. Advocating for yourself, which can be hard to do sometimes, and pacing. I pace every single day. I
It's
I
very
have certain.
exhausting too. Not just hard, but
I
very
know.
exhausting and mentally taxing, especially with certain people who just don't want. Some people, it's hard for others to sometimes see the extent of what we're dealing with when it's an invisible illness like you and I have. And that just adds to the emotional stress, at least for me.
I totally agree. Like with invisible illness, it's just so invalidating sometimes because people can't see how bad we actually are.
Indeed. And then people are just trying to say, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's this or that. Well, nobody knows how bad it is except for ourselves, the individual living through the physical and other experiences with their health.
Yeah, I completely agree. So you seem to have an interesting perspective on having fibromyalgia. I struggle a lot with the fact that I, might have chronic pain for the rest of my life and
Mhm.
this might never get better. So like might be called like a life sentence. Do you feel that way? Do you think chronic pain is a life sentence?
In one way, I would say yes, and that it's not going, and that it's not, is that it's no guarantee it's going to get significantly better, like for the indefinite, for the going forward, but in the sense that, but on another side of the coin, I would say it's not a life sentence because we have control over how we conceptualize our pain and how we adapt to it. That brings up the point that access to healthcare and resources is not transparent across communities and cultures and circumstances. So that's where I would say the biggest issue is.
That makes sense. And a lot of providers don't really understand chronic pain. I feel like the medical community is pretty good at acute pain. If you break your arm, they know what to give you and what to do to make it heal itself. But with chronic pain, they frequently just don't know what to do with us.
Yeah, I think part of that is if it's acute pain, like you said, a broken arm, that's evidenced through like physical touch and x-rays, imaging. But chronic pain, I may be mistaken, but I don't believe there was always ways to physically see and sense it. You can assess it, manipulate it, but that is for interpretation. That's still subjective to the provider to interpret.
And you're right. Like you can have three people with the same x-ray results. One might have no pain, one might have a little pain, one might have a lot of pain. And there's not always a structural cause for chronic pain. A lot of times there is, but a lot of times there isn't, which kind of leads me into the next topic, which is trauma. So have you ever done any reading about the relationship between like trauma and chronic pain?
I have some understanding, some familiarity with the correlation between trauma and pain.
Yeah, so from my understanding, basically what happens is trauma severs the mind body connection. And I read that people with PTSD are 10 times more likely than someone without PTSD to develop chronic pain. So when our mind body connection is severed, our amygdala is going crazy, which is like the smoke detector of our brain, which senses danger. And it puts our body in a constant state of fight or flight mode. So then it changes the chemistry in our brain, our neural pathways, and basically our brain is overstimulated, I guess might be a way to say it. But I think that's really interesting. And I've read a few statistics. One said 50%, one said 80%. So I like to say somewhere between 50 and 80% of physical pain is due to unresolved, unprocessed emotional pain. And I think that's so interesting because I've met so many people who have chronic pain who have some kind of trauma or PTSD.
Yeah,
So I
that I
definitely,
know. I have complex
mhm,
post-traumatic stress disorder, complex
mhm.
PTSD.
Yeah, me too. And I think, well, I don't know if I think, but I wonder, like, because I do have some structural problems. My imaging shows there's some abnormalities, but
Yeah,
I
me too,
do,
mildly. Like some disc degeneration and some
yeah,
other anatomical, like spine issues in my neck and back.
exactly. And I just wonder maybe if I didn't have the CPTSD, if maybe my pain would be less. And so, because I've met several people who have cured their chronic pain through mind body techniques, through EFT slash tapping, through inner child work, through meditation, through journaling, through all these methods. And none of them have ever come to me and said, my doctor healed me from my chronic pain. It's always been through these alternative methods, which I also think is really interesting, these mind body methods.
I find that that's often the case. I feel that in my opinion, Western medicine is a complex is a complex that sends out and moves around a revolving door of getting people to come in, get services, get meds, and keeping them dependent on coming back. And then if you want to have better results or more hope, then it's often, oh, you need to see a holistic practitioner, an integrative doctor. Then those almost always, if not ever, are not covered by commercial and private health insurance, which means
Yep.
that people who aren't financially affluent or don't have access to moderate resources are going to be stuck in that revolving door, not actually getting the help and support and relief that is truly available and possible.
I completely agree that it's just that the system is set up to keep people staying sick
Yeah, the
so
same
that
with
they
psychiatry and mental health.
mm, I had never thought about the mental health aspect of it. I've thought about the physical aspect, but I haven't thought about the psychiatry, like psychology aspect of it. That's an
I
interesting
find
thought.
the psychiatry and psychology aspect is heavily tied, in my opinion, to Medicare and Medicaid
Mm,
in regards to clinics that are funded by Medicaid and the quality and access to the to top tier care and resources that are that are usually not available for folks on Medicare and Medicaid, which are
mm.
usually self-pay or out of network benefits, and Medicare, straight Medicare does not have out of network benefits.
Yeah, I never thought about that before, but I think that's interesting. I definitely think that like the goal of a therapist in mental health should be that you don't need your therapist anymore. Because if you've been going to the same therapist talking about the same thing for 10 years, your therapist isn't really helping you, right? Like
Exactly.
my last therapist said my job is to have you put me out of a job. And I really appreciated that because I wanted her to be able to help me deal with things in my life on my own without needing therapy.
I find that with me personally, I've had many therapists that just don't help me, aren't
Mm.
willing to be um real and war with me. If I say, hey, please be so honest with me if I need to hear it, even if it makes me cry. Like that's their job to make me cry if it comes to that, and then help me process it, not pacify and coddle me. Well, then I'm not gonna get the benefits or the insight or support I need, especially when I'm literally pleading with them from the get-go of the therapeutic relationship to be direct and honest with me about.
And that's what we should expect from our providers, whether they're physical health or mental health providers. We should expect them to be direct and honest. And just so many aren't.
Unfortunately, it's like really concerning, very alarming, very I would even say disgusting,
Mm,
quite frankly.
yeah. You talked about a few ways that you manage your pain through lower stress and through exercise and through modifying and through pacing. Do you have any other tips for managing your, just personally your chronic pain?
Yes. Adequate sleep and hydration definitely helps. Like I'm not an expert in the head, but I have improved. I would say with me, staying busy, keeping my mind distracted. That's probably one of the major points I would make. Because if I'm distracted and busy, chances of me recognizing and feeling my pain are much less. So that's one. And I would say a mindset. Having the right mindset is extremely crucial. Like with me, I believe that my pain that that my pain is reversible. I may not ever, it may not ever go away completely, entirely, but I have reduced it in, in the moment in regards to severity by using somatic and mind body techniques. So that's hope within itself. And just using pain for purpose, like you said, I think that helps the psyche and in return can help the physiological aspect.
Right. I like the keeping yourself busy part. I remember when I was, because I also deal with migraines, and I was in a hospital program inpatient for 4 weeks. And one day we did an activity where we were all playing a game. And at the end of the game, the leader, the coach or whatever he was, said, "Now, how many of you have not thought about your pain for the last, 20 minutes?" And that was most of us because we've been having fun. My brains had been focused on something else instead of being focused on the pain. So I think that's a great tip. And I also like the mindset one. Like what got me out of my grief and depression when I, lost my career was mindset. I just decided that my life didn't have to be over, and I didn't want to leave a legacy of a mom always in bed, depressed and in pain for my daughter, who was, I think, about 5 at the time. And so I just decided to focus on gratitude, things that I still could do, things that I still had, instead of things that I couldn't do and things that I'd lost. And that changed a lot.
I've been focusing a lot on gratitude lately too, even to the extent of journaling gratitude daily, but pen to paper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something with pen to paper that has a produces more of a produces a better outcome and effect than typing.
I've heard that, and I feel that too. I've done journals typing, and I've done them writing pen to paper, and definitely pen to paper is a completely different and better experience.
It is. I think the multi-sensory tactile aspect, I think, definitely can be a big player in that.
Right. What advice do you think you would have for people with chronic pain? Not like necessarily tips to reduce their pain, but just advice in general.
Your pain does not define you. You, the person who is dealing with the pain, defines the pain. So I would encourage folks with chronic pain to stay socially active. That doesn't mean you need to get out and physically exert yourself, but having a circle of contacts who you can go to with when you're having a flare up or going through a medical issue with the pain. But I would recommend a small intimate circle, like maybe like 3 or 4 people, and and just keeping the intimate details of your pain journey, like just that intimate, not out there more than you feel comfortable or than's necessary. I would also say know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Just because somebody may be having a really hard time in the present doesn't mean that it's definitely going to be that way indefinitely. And I would encourage folks to be innovative when it comes to finding resources and to incorporate the holistic health into the pain, mind, body, and spirit. Especially when it comes to non-conventional treatments and providers, that's an opportunity to be innovative with funding. Like there's medical platforms for fundraising. You can also reach out to nonprofits for a grant or a scholarship and just be innovative and pace yourself going back to pacing yourself when it comes to coming up with a game plan for getting the care you need, and just keep your head up and one foot in front of another, one hand in front of the other, and just know you got this, and things can and will get better for you.
I think those are all really good and hopefully inspiring for people that we do have a lot of control over our own lives and our pain is not our identity.
I want you to check
I
into that, and if I
mhm,
can experience that, others who are listening can too.
yeah, I think that's really important. Where can we get more information about you, about your nonprofit?
You can email me at my nonprofit at my first initial, which is C, last name B as in boy, IRSTLER, at from victim number 2 victor.org. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at from victim to victor, but there might be a slight variation in the URLs. But if you search my name, Christopher, and my last name, that should pull them up. And you can also call or text me at 718-883-0004.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you again for having me. I enjoyed this candid discussion.
Make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any health, parenting, or life advice. For my freebie 30 ways to relieve pain without taking a pill, go to ithurtstomom.com/tips. If you have comments, suggestions, or want to be on this podcast, email me at ithurtstomom@gmail.com. I wish everybody a blessed and pain-free day.